how police explained this to us is that one vehicle was traveling northbound. They entered the center lane and then collided with the car going south. This is where protesters ran after the tear gas was thrown at the intersection of Clinton and Main. Now, I am here with Madison. She was actually there at particularly like ground zero. We were at the gas station Phillips that's located on Pettit in South Calhoun. While I was there, one of the officers did tell me that that is actually where the victim drove after being shot at this location. Now, if you take a look over here, you will see this huge, massive tree that actually fell on a power line. People on our Facebook page stating who they'll vote for and who they want, but I do want to stress that this is a caucus, meaning that members of the GOP will come together and vote. Terror Congressman Jim Banks has been elected twice, winning back in 2016 and 2018. And I am here with the winner right now, Congressman Jim Banks. How are you doing?
Well, it's a great night.
The water is about 33 degrees. As a southerner, I must say, I do get a little nervous when I hear the term snow, freezing rain, or black ice. Now, Carlos, if you could just come down here and just show the fact that this is the top of the tree, the whole top of the tree, and would you believe that it actually snapped from the top of that trunk right there? Driving by, honking their horns with their fists in the air to show support. One driver actually pulled over and gave the protesters pizza. More than 100 people gathered here at the courthouse. Now, when I spoke to family members, they told me that they are very appreciative and grateful of all the love and support that they are receiving from the community. One of Josh and Jalen's great aunts told me that this peaceful demonstration isn't about getting angry, it's about getting justice.
Here are the men currently on death row for the state of Indiana. Their victims, collectively 7 men, including a Beech Grove police officer, 5 women, and 5 children. Their crime, murder and rape. All sentenced to die, but lives still hanging in the balance. The executive director of the Death Penalty Information Center says companies don't want their medicines used for off-label purposes, especially to kill prisoners.
And the marketers don't want their medicines associated with death, because who will buy a drug to protect their health if they think of it as a killing drug?
Here is the list of the ingredients in the cocktail of death. IVs are placed in both arms, but only one is injected with the drugs. The other arm is a backup in case something goes wrong with the first infusion.
It is very difficult for them to obtain the drugs through legitimate means. And that's one of the reasons why we've seen a number of states adopting these secrecy statutes that make it so that the companies are prevented from learning up front whether their drugs are being diverted from medical purposes to execution purposes.
The state is faced with a secondary problem, a lawsuit. Back in 2014, a Washington, D.C. attorney by the name of Catherine Toomey requested the Indiana Department of Corrections to identify its suppliers of drugs for its executions. This escalated to a 6-year court battle, pushing the Hoosier state to reveal its supplier. Indiana adopted the SHIELD law, which protects the state from revealing certain information, such as its supplier. I reached out to the IDOC, but they declined an interview. I also reached out to the state solicitor, General Tom Fisher, who is representing the state in the case. He would not go on camera, but he did send me this statement.
You know, she left 2 young boys behind, and they need to know the kind of legacy that their mom left behind too, the kind of impact she had on everyone's lives.
A positive and dedicated worker who always wore a smile on her face is how Rebecca Garcia is remembered. Last Friday night, Rebecca was leaving work and heading home to be with her 2 sons, but never made it. While she was waiting at a red light, a suspected drunk driver jumped the curb and crashed into her SUV.
Fortunately, I did see the aftermath of the accident. Anytime I see an accident right outside of Texas Roadhouse, I'm always have this pit in my stomach that it's an employee of mine. I did drive by there to see if I recognized a vehicle. I didn't see her truck because it was blocked, but I did see the suspect's car, and I actually had relief that I could go home and it wasn't one of my employees.
That relief only lasted briefly. An hour later, the staff learned that Rebecca was indeed the victim, leaving behind 2 young boys and the Texas Roadhouse family with a long list of questions.
We need justice for her, because the 2 kids got without parents. They got orphaned. She was the only one was taking care of those kids.
You don't expect to get that phone call, you know, at 1 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, this is what's going on, you know, hearing from her cousin and just the pain and everything, and their voices like, no, not Rebecca, not that positive person, not her.
The staff says the work environment is usually filled with laughs, jokes, playfulness. But now?
Still her over here. Well, myself, sometimes I feel like I got something stuck in my throat.
Saturday night, that shift was definitely the hardest shift I've ever worked. Not because of how busy we were, but it was so quiet.
I never thought my life would be like this. You know, I'm an independent person.
On March 17th, Rita Earn was experiencing cold-like symptoms and later developed a fever that continued to linger.
And I was tested for the influenza and for COVID, and the influenza test came back negative, but they said it could be a week before I got the COVID test back.
It didn't take a week. 2 days later, her doctor called her to let her know that she in fact tested positive for COVID-19, but that was only the beginning. During her self-quarantine, she started having difficulties breathing and was rushed to the hospital.
I did code and flatline when I got to the hospital. My heart stopped for a minute and a half. But I did develop a blood clot, and they went in to remove the clot. They were successful with that, but my foot apparently went septic.
Rita is a widow, and her only child had to make the tough decision to have her foot amputated.
Never hold that against her. She was a little bit afraid that I would be upset.
During this time, Rita is usually looking forward to going to a local winery, enjoying a live band, dancing with friends, or having a family cookout. But now she is back at her childhood home that's tucked away on a countryside road in Woodburn, surrounded by her support system, her family.
Somebody had to take care of her. Like, it wasn't, there was no option to say, oh, I'm afraid, like, what if we get the virus? There's just not an option.
Rita says she believes God had her beat COVID-19 and he's keeping her alive for a reason.
I feel like I need to really do something with my life because I still have it. And I just thank God for that.